SynDaver Labs in Tampa, Florida, manufacture the world's most sophisticated human tissues and body parts. Kevin King is the Vice President of Global Marketing at SynDaver and joins us to explain their latest project, the Special Operations Forces Suit, or SOF suit.
So thanks for having us, Kevin.
Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here again.
We're repeat offenders here at SynDaver. You guys have the notoriety of the most repeat appearances on our program, and it's because every time you come out with something new and I see a press release or I see something about it on TV, I'm like, we have to come out and check this out. So for those who aren't familiar with SynDaver, just a little background on the company.
So SynDaver is a company that's been around for just over a dozen years in its modern iteration. SynDaver focuses on live tissue simulation, where live tissue used to be used for training, and now with the advent of soft tissue, much like what you see in front of you right now, we don't have to practice anymore on real patients the way that I did when I started my career as a paramedic.
Kevin practiced as a paramedic for 15 years, 8 of those being a helicopter paramedic.
So when we first started practicing, we practiced on plastic. We practiced on something that you would stick a block in front of you and say, pretend that's a real patient.
And he doesn't reply.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reply is not what you would get in real life. So fundamentally, throughout the course of my training and throughout the course of my career, we wanted to practice more and more and more on increasing degrees of fidelity. So fidelity is basically what becomes more and more real in terms of training. So what you see in front of you right now represents the latest and greatest in what that is.
And what are the tissues and organs made of? It's not silicone, it's not plastic, for the most part, in a typical SynDaver.
Yeah, a typical SynDaver, and many of these parts are made of the same tissue. It's a proprietary tissue that we've created, this fiber, salt, and water, just like what's inside you and I.
Body.
Yeah, just like you and I.
Much like our own bodies, these tissues are water-based and will decompose over time. Therefore, they need to be stored in large bins of preservative solution.
So tell us about the SOF suit, Special Operations Forces. What was the thought process behind the concept?
You know, the impetus for the SOF suit, which, as you mentioned, stands for Special Operations Forces Suits, was we wanted to make a point of injury simulator, a wearable device, which is what this is. So an actor who would put this on, and that would be the standardized patient that would be lying underneath the suit. So he would act the way that an injured patient would act.
The suit contains skin, bones, and vascularized organs, which replicate the most vital portions of the human body. Saving procedures can be performed on the suit.
If we recreate a collapsed lung, which is a very common injury on the battlefield, it's a very common injury in terms of blunt force trauma, period, then you could imagine there's 2 treatments that are definitive in terms of treating that. You need to do a needle decompression, which is relieving air in the intrapleural space, which is that space in between the lung and the chest wall. And then when the patient gets to the hospital, there's going to be a chest tube performed as well.
Kevin demonstrates a common procedure on the SOF suit being worn by a live individual. Ethan assists in the needle decompression process.
Push the needle.
How far?
As far as you can.
It's not going to poke through into our acta.
It won't poke through into the actor. As far as you can.
As far as I can go.
Yeah, and then go ahead and withdraw on that plunger. Get a little bit of air out, perfect, and pull the needle right off. When the patient gets to the hospital, there's going to be a chest tube performed as well. And this technology allows for you to do both of those procedures.
While the suit was initially created for the military to train soldiers on the battlefield, the pre-hospital community discovered the device and determined that it would be also beneficial for their training as well.
You can imagine a continuity of care scenario. So now, if I'm training paramedics, and I'm training nurses, and I'm training physicians even in the emergency room, I can take this technology and I can say start in the field, because it's going to be on an actor, and let's go through from the field. So you could do the needle decompression in the field, come in, have the nurses assess the patient, start an IV on the patient, do their full assessment in terms of feeling or palpating the patient, and then pass care off to the physician, who can then go ahead, make an incision, and perform a chest tube.
The best medical training involves recreating environments that cause stress. Up until now, most training aids were hollow dummies, where only one of the most simple procedures could be performed.
What matters is, and I can tell you from my own paramedic experience, we would put these folks through education, through classes. When they got out into the field, that was a real test. But often it's too late. In other words, the most book-smart person you could take all the way through their didactic, their classroom training, and when they got out into the field and they saw some gross trauma for the first time, they go, wow. You can actually recreate the medical condition. You can have the actor completely prepared, and standardized patients these days are Oscar-worthy performances, as you can imagine. So they can say, it's not just my side is hurting. They'll be screaming at the top of their lungs because they're fighting for air, thinking this is potentially the last 2 or 3 breaths that they're ever going to have. And if you don't treat them, that could be the case.
These levels of authenticity help to prepare future medics, nurses, and physicians for the realities that lie ahead.
As a paramedic, my argument was I could only impact one life at a time. I could only treat one patient at a time. Whether I was flying on a $14 million helicopter or driving around in a land ambulance, with medical simulation and with the replicability of these devices, we can impact multiples of that. We can impact so many more patient lives because we're improving training, exactly like you said, early on in that entire training program. And for me, there's no more noble calling than being able to impact patient lives, improve patient outcomes by providing this type of training early on to those folks who are out there in the field.
Who are your prime customers, if you will? I'm guessing the military, government. You're branching off into medical facilities, hospitals, and things like that?
Yeah, the armed forces certainly are a big customer of ours and had a lot to do with the input in terms of development of the product. Again, the pre-hospital, paramedic, firefighters, folks who would benefit from this training, as they become more aware of the devices that are out there and they see this kind of training, they think, wow.
Kevin mentions that the military has an axiom that SynDaver also tries to live by. We train how we fight how we train, meaning that if you can replicate situations as realistically in training as you would experience in the field, you will be much prepared.
Tell us about some of the things you have on the horizon.
The relationship that we've recently coming together with the movie guys, for lack of a better word, was them saying, this is really cool technology. Imagine if we could do things medically to your technology as well. In other words, could we put an airway inside your technology? Could we do CPR on your technology? Can we put monitors on your technology? So that was the advent and the birth of LifeCast body simulation. I really like the idea. I love the idea of fidelity in medical simulation. We talked about what my drives are and what my passion is in terms of medical simulation. So when I got introduced to the notion of LifeCast, I thought this, to me, seems like a marriage made in heaven. It's a no-brainer.
SynDaver quickly became the sole North American distributor for LifeCast products, including an adult male, adult female, toddlers, and now an infant.
The notion with LifeCast was they wanted something to be emotionally stimulating. They actually introduced me to the term emotional fidelity. And to me, when I thought about that, it made a whole lot of sense.
For instance, the LifeCast baby not only looks real, it feels real as well.
When you lift them, you'll think, wow, everything about this baby, it feels like a real baby. And all of that is deliberate. So they actually have the appropriate baby weight of a head. They have the appropriate torso weight. It's floppy, just like a real baby is floppy.
Add that level of external realism to the technology that SynDaver can place inside the simulated body, and you have one incredibly lifelike and life-saving training aid.
And at the end of the day, we win, don't we? Because we're the ones that are going to be patients moving forward. So if I can make sure that all the coming through are that much more better trained than I ever was, hey man, we're doing our job.
That's a win.
Another project the lab is introducing is the SynDaver Advanced Modular Mannequin, or SAM.
A modular mannequin is where we open up the architecture of the simulator itself to say to the customer, we're giving the power back to you. So with our promotion that's going on right now with SAM, you actually get a 3D printer with that mannequin.
Oh, wow.
You get a lesson with that mannequin as well. So we'll teach you how to use a 3D printer. So if you could imagine, for example, you were careless and somehow you managed to break the arm of your simulator. No need to send the simulator back to us.
Print a new one.
You can print it yourself.
This will also provide an opportunity to create a community of people who can share and develop new innovative technologies, which will help to continuously progress the realism and accuracy of these products.
The whole community, again, is going to benefit as a result of that, and we're happy to be pioneers in that field and leading that charge.
SynDaver Labs continues to push the boundaries of reality in medical training, subsequently raising the bar for all medicine. For more information, visit SynDaver.com.
I'm sure we'll be back again for the feline. We'll check out the SAM. So appreciate you having us, Kevin. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for coming out. It's been our pleasure.
All right.
All right.